As the monster's tentacles surged toward them, the girl panicked once more. She collapsed onto the floor, covering her head with her hands, and screamed that they were doomed to die there, eaten alive by the creature. Still holding his shield, the hero silently agreed with Anna. He realized he would not be able to withstand the monster's assault for much longer and frantically began searching for a way to escape. Then, a flash of memory struck him. He remembered spotting several canisters of gasoline nearby. Without wasting time, he called out to his partner. Michael told Anna to calm down, assuring her that he had thought of a way they might escape. Anna looked up at him with hope shining in her eyes and immediately asked what his plan was. But instead of explaining, Michael moved into action. He separated one of the metal rods from his shield and, with a wave of his hand, hurled it toward the side. The metal, yielding easily to his will, bent like a ribbon under his control. The rod struck the gasoline canisters, flinging them high into the air. Then, still under Michael's guidance, the rod continued its movement, this time aimed directly at the monster's body. Simultaneously, Michael divided the floating fireball he had conjured into several smaller ones, maneuvering them dangerously close to the airborne canisters. Without hesitation, he grabbed Anna by the hand and sprinted away from the scene. Moments later, a tremendous explosion erupted behind them, a wave of intense heat lashing at their backs. The other prisoners, who had also been held captive by the monster, seized the moment and broke free. They, too, ran toward the exit with all the strength they could muster, leaving the monster trapped within a raging inferno. However, Michael's plan did not succeed as perfectly as he had hoped. The explosion had failed to kill the creature. One of the monster's massive tentacles shot out, pursuing them relentlessly. Anna was once again teetering on the brink of death, until, out of nowhere, a figure appeared. With a swift strike, the newcomer severed the tentacle and then positioned himself directly in Michael's path, blocking further escape. The man glared at them with a cold, commanding look and, in a voice filled with menace, demanded to know if they were the thieves responsible for reviving the monster and unleashing it upon the area. Anna, bristling with irritation, stepped defiantly out from behind Michael. She demanded to know who he was and why he was spouting such nonsense. The stranger, glaring at her from beneath heavy brows, replied sharply that she was far too disrespectful for someone of her age. Anna fired back with even greater irritation, accusing him of being the one disrespectful toward young people, despite being nothing more than an old man himself. Throughout their argument, Michael remained silent, scrutinizing the man closely. There was something familiar about him. Searching his memory, Michael suddenly recalled, this was Simon Kurd, the hero who had defeated King Kong Berserker 10 years ago. Stepping forward, Michael placed himself protectively in front of Anna and offered Simon a respectful apology for his partner's behavior. Simon let out a low chuckle and turned his gaze back to the monster, commenting that Michael was certainly more polite than the girl. Yet, he added, he had no time to waste, the monster needed to be dealt with first. Without another word, Simon leapt into action. He drew the sword slung across his back and shouted, "Polar Star Attack, Style 1, Greedy Wolf Strike." A torrent of energy burst from his blade, manifesting as a massive wolf. With just a few swift slashes of its claws, the spectral wolf severed several of the monster's tentacles before disappearing as quickly as it had appeared. Michael and Anna watched in stunned silence. Michael, almost in awe, muttered that if this truly was the legendary Polar Star Attack, then inherited power, then even warriors with S-rank abilities would be forced to retreat. Enraged by the loss of several limbs, the monster roared and attacked Simon again, launching its tentacles from every direction. Yet Simon remained unfazed. He countered with the second style, North Star, Heaven's Hunger. In a breathtaking instant, his blade sliced the monster's body into hundreds of tiny pieces. But Simon did not stop there. To deliver the final blow, he unleashed the third style, or Water of Heaven. With this technique, he hurled his sword directly into the monster's bone mask. The weapon struck with such force that the monster, once so fearsome, crumbled. Having defeated the beast in mere moments, Simon landed gracefully back on the ground. Without hesitation, he retrieved his sword and immediately turned his blade toward Michael and Anna. It was clear Simon now intended to deal with them. Michael saw the fierce determination, the lethal intent, burning in Simon's eyes. Quickly, he raised his hands in a gesture of peace, trying to explain that they were not the ones who had resurrected the monster. Simon, however, was unconvinced. He declared that they seemed far too suspicious for him to simply trust their words. Anna, voice trembling slightly, called out to Michael. She asked in a hushed tone whether he thought he could defeat the old man standing before them. Michael turned to her, uncertainty clouding his eyes. The hero replied with regret that, unfortunately, defeating Simon was beyond his ability. He then asked Anna if she truly expected him to succeed against such an opponent. Anna shook her head and smiled, saying she simply wanted to lend him a weapon. Without warning, she handed him something, and before Michael could even react, armor swiftly wrapped itself around his entire body. Meanwhile, Anna turned and sprinted away, calling over her shoulder that the armor was crafted from the materials of a B-rank monster. It should offer him reliable protection, at least for a short time. At that very moment, Simon launched another sudden attack, a brutal reminder of his presence. The assault was so swift that Michael could only instinctively step back and shield himself with his right hand. Behind the rooster mask, his eyes widened in shock. The armor had withstood the blow from a hero of Simon's caliber. Simon showed no intention of letting up. Driven by the desire to eliminate his opponent, he unleashed a relentless barrage of attacks. Yet, Michael managed to dodge each strike by the thinnest of margins. Realizing he couldn't last like this forever, he made a desperate move. He activated his brain overload ability, hoping it might tilt the odds in his favor. To his astonishment, it worked. Simon's movement seemed to slow, allowing Michael to read his attacks more clearly. Although this improvement lifted Michael's spirits, he knew it would still not be enough to defeat a legendary swordsman like Simon. Noticing the brief hesitation in his opponent, Simon sneered and warned him to be more cautious in battle. Without giving Michael a chance to recover, he targeted an open spot and lunged forward. Michael stood frozen in horror. There was no way to dodge in time. His only chance was to maximize his human control ability. In an instant, Simon froze in midair, unable to move even a finger. His face twisted in shock as he looked at Michael, demanding to know how he had been paralyzed so easily. The effect, however, was fleeting. As soon as it wore off, Michael leapt aside, narrowly avoiding Simon's sword. Catching his breath, Michael called out that if he had not used that ability, he would already be dead. Furious, Simon charged again, shouting that cheap tricks were all thieves could manage. Michael knew that relying on the human control ability again would drain him too much. He needed another tactic. Activating his metal transformation ability, he forged a crude sword from thin air, just enough to defend himself. Their blades collided fiercely. Michael struggled against the incredible force behind each strike, realizing that if he did not find a way to end this quickly, he would eventually be split in two. Then, unexpected voices echoed from nearby. A group of men, strangers to Michael, watched the battle with amazement. They marveled that someone was able to stand against the legendary Simon Kurd. Some speculated that Michael must be the A-rank hero from the 6th God of Weapons zone. Hearing this, Michael frowned. He had never heard of any God of Weapons before. His train of thought was cut short as Simon's voice rang out. With a smirk, Simon declared that judging by Michael's skill and attacks, he wasn't a thief after all. He then sheathed his sword. Turning his sharp gaze toward the onlookers, Simon ordered them to leave the corpse processing area at once. He needed a private conversation with the young man who had stood against him. Anna and the others, still shaken from the battle, hesitated. One of the rescued captives asked nervously if they were truly allowed to leave. But when they met Simon's cold, commanding gaze, they wasted no time, fleeing down the corridor without a second glance. Anna called back, shouting that she would wait for Michael outside and wished him luck. When the area finally cleared, Michael turned to Simon and asked what he wanted to discuss. Simon's demeanor grew serious. He said he knew for certain that Michael was not the God of Weapons, his skills were far inferior. The only similarity between them was the ability to control metal. Simon's sharp eyes missed nothing. He had noticed that Michael possessed multiple abilities, marking him as someone quite powerful, and someone like that would not have come here just to steal monster fur. Simon's expression darkened. He asked, in a grave tone, whether Michael had come in search of the world's secret. Michael had no idea what Simon was talking about. He had never even heard of such a secret. But sensing an opportunity to gather information, he nodded and answered truthfully that he had indeed come in search of the world's secret. The sincerity of his reply seemed to make Simon pause. Simon burst out laughing, saying that he liked ambitious young people and would tell Michael everything. Michael was taken aback by how easily the man trusted him, but it worked in his favor, so he remained silent and listened carefully. With pride swelling in his voice, Simon revealed that the true purpose behind the creation of the center was to open a one-way tunnel to the monster world, the so-called White Hole. He explained that 15 years ago, the White Hole in their city, City L, had been discovered. In response, the Hero Association dispatched a small squad of high-ranking heroes with a mission to infiltrate the monster world. Simon himself had been among them. His voice grew heavy with sorrow as he recounted the grim tale. During that mission, many S-rank heroes lost their lives. In the end, only Simon and 2 others survived, and that was only because they had been willing to risk everything. Pointing toward the furnace where the scarlet flames blazed, Simon explained that each monster corpse processing center had been built on one of the Earth's weakest points. By continuously burning monster corpses at these sites, they kept the white hole open, sustaining a fragile bridge to the monster world and beyond. After absorbing all of this, Michael glanced at the freshly killed monster's body and asked why it had come back to life. Simon's face darkened as he admitted that this was a secret they kept hidden from the public. In truth, that monster was a mutation, a creature that had evolved from the monsters emerging through the white hole. The center believed that humanity was little more than prey, trapped in a cage with beasts. Only by uniting all human strength would they ever have a chance to defeat the monsters and bring an end to this nightmare. Finishing his story, Simon turned and waved dismissively. He told Michael that he was free to go, regardless of which organization he belonged to. He reminded him that, above all else, he was still an important part of humanity. Meanwhile, tension simmered within the center's upper ranks. Katerina was furious. Simon's reckless behavior had long been a problem, but sharing classified secrets crossed an unacceptable line. Sitting beside her, a calm man, Jacob, reasoned that even if Simon had stayed silent, the truth would eventually have leaked out. It was impossible to keep such monumental secrets contained forever. Katerina sighed heavily and turned, asking if preparations for the video conference were complete. The next moment, dozens of windows lit up, showing the faces of participants from various places. A female voice announced that over 25 people were attending, and all conditions for discussing an S-rank matter had been met. Katerina and Jacob listened attentively. Once the report concluded, Jacob nodded and stated that it was time to begin. They would finally reveal the truth to the associations representing the highest-level heroes, those exceeding even A rank. At his words, a flash of fear crossed Katerina's face. She wasn't sure if humanity was ready to hear what was coming. Meanwhile, Michael visited his sister in the hospital. Sitting beside her bed, he quietly shared that he had learned a terrible secret that day. His mind drifted back to the memory of walking out of the corridor into the common area, where workers had already gathered. They stared at him, whispering in confusion, unable to understand why only he had emerged from inside. Anna rushed up to him, visibly worried. She hesitated before asking if he was all right. Michael froze, realizing he could not afford to reveal his abilities. Taking a cautious step closer to her, he asked her to look him in the eyes. Anna blinked in confusion but did as he asked. That moment was all Michael needed. Activating his human control ability, he cast her into a trance. Mentally, he ordered her to forget seeing him use any fire or metal-related powers. He also made her forget that he had brought her the armor, and added that he owed her 10,000,001. With a snap of his fingers, he released her. Anna jolted back, blinking in confusion. Smiling awkwardly, she said she was relieved he was okay, then hastily made an excuse about curfew and ran off. Michael smiled fondly at the memory, remarking to his sleeping sister that Anna reminded him so much of Lucia, sweet, caring, and just as obsessed with money. Gently stroking Lucia's cheek, Michael whispered with hope that once he achieved his revenge, he would find a way to wake her up. He stayed with his sister until late into the night, until the nurses announced that visiting hours were over. Reluctantly, Michael left and returned home. There, he threw himself into critical preparations for his upcoming meeting with Austin, using his metal transformation ability to forge what he would need for the battles ahead. Back at home, Michael finished his final preparations. On his right middle finger, he attached a homemade stellar absorption ring. In his free hand, he held a small jar containing a shimmering blue liquid, the so-called ability medicine. Michael needed a way to hide his true powers, and these two items would serve as perfect tools to deceive Austin. He also had a special mask prepared for this operation, a snake-themed mask. Taking it in his hands, he put it on, then activated his transformation ability, instantly changing into a different outfit that matched the mask. This identity, known simply as a snake, would possess a C-rank electricity manipulation ability, and if necessary, could also wield fire attacks. Michael had a grander vision in mind. He intended to create an entirely new organization, a group composed of his many alternate personas. It would be called Judges, and its mission would be to pass judgment on fallen heroes. With Austin providing funding, Michael was confident there would be no obstacles to establishing this secretive organization. The next morning, Michael headed to the meeting place. Austin had been waiting there since dawn and, exhausted, had fallen asleep right on the ground. As Michael approached, he nudged Austin's side with his foot, waking him up. The boy jolted upright, blurting out threats, but as soon as he recognized the mask and cloak, his anger vanished, replaced with a sheepish, guilty look. Michael simply sighed and thanked him for coming. In response, Austin threw himself at Michael's legs, clinging to them desperately. With pleading eyes, he promised that if Michael could grant him an ability, he would repay him with anything he desired: money, women, status, whatever he wanted. Michael frowned in disgust and shook him off, stating coldly that he had no interest in any of those things. He then told Austin that obtaining an ability was simple, all he had to do was look him in the eyes. As their gazes met, Michael immediately activated his human control ability, expecting Austin to fall under his influence. He quickly ordered Austin to reveal everything he knew about the blue pill. But to Michael's surprise, Austin remained silent. Frowning, Michael tested it again, commanding Austin to slap himself. Yet again, there was no reaction. A suspicion formed in Michael's mind: this boy must possess an ability of his own, and it was strong enough to block human control. Moving quickly, Michael raised his palm and lightly tapped Austin's forehead, unleashing a mental attack. Austin collapsed instantly, unconscious. Staring down at him, Michael recalled that when they first met in the bar, Austin had appeared weak and unremarkable. He hadn't imagined the boy could have any ability at all. Yet now, it was clear there was more to him. Deciding to test further, Michael used ability extraction on the unconscious boy, and to his shock, it succeeded. Reading the ability's description, Michael realized he had extracted an A-rank power called Resurrection, an ability that allowed its user to come back to life once after death, returning to the previous day. Smiling to himself, Michael pressed the green pearl to his chest, absorbing the new ability. He knew that Resurrection would prove invaluable in the battles ahead, potentially changing the course of his entire plan. After securing the ability for himself, Michael took out another ability pearl, one he had acquired at the corpse processing center. He carefully fed it to the unconscious Austin. When the pill had been fully absorbed, Michael commanded him to wake up. Austin shot upright, dazed and confused, asking how he had fallen asleep without even realizing it. Michael waved it off, saying that he was simply exhausted and needed the rest. Next, Michael showed him the ring he was wearing. Seeing Austin's puzzled expression, he explained that it was a stellar absorption ring, crafted by their organization. With it, Austin would be able to steal ability factors from other people. Austin's eyes widened in shock. Michael continued, pulling out the small bottle of blue liquid from his pocket. He explained that their organization had developed special methods to transform ability factors into liquid ability medicine, a way for ordinary people to awaken powers. Tossing the bottle to him, Michael told him he could test it himself. Austin hesitated. It could be poison, he thought. But logically, if they had wanted him dead, they wouldn't have waited until today. Steeling himself, Austin chose to take the risk. He drank the contents of the bottle in one long gulp. The empty bottle slipped from his fingers and shattered on the ground. Almost immediately, Austin clutched his head, writhing in agony as searing pain tore through his entire body. As Austin writhed from the burning sensation coursing through his body, he looked up at Michael in confusion and demanded to know what he had done to him. Behind the snake mask, Michael hid a satisfied smile. He calmly told Austin that soon, he would experience the true power of abilities. Austin pulled his palms away from his face, trembling. He said his whole body felt like it was on fire. Michael silently watched as the transformation unfolded, even though the truth was, the blue medicine had nothing to do with it. It was Michael who was remotely controlling the pearl of ability he had implanted into Austin. Suddenly, the changes became visible. Austin's ears grew pointed and became covered in fur. His hands morphed into animal-like paws. Before Michael now stood a towering werewolf, much larger than an average human. Furious and terrified, Austin demanded to know what was happening to him. Michael explained that he had granted him the ability to transform. He was now a werewolf. Staring at his clawed paw in disbelief, Austin hesitantly asked, his brother could transform into a dragon, who was stronger now? Michael responded bluntly, his brother's dragon transformation was an A-rank ability, while Austin's werewolf form was merely E-rank. At this, Austin exploded with anger, shouting about the massive 3-rank difference. But Michael quickly soothed him, explaining that Austin had only just joined the organization, and for now, they could only grant him F-rank medicine. Michael had, in fact, upgraded it slightly for him to E-rank. Hearing this, Austin's anger melted away into admiration. Looking at Michael with sparkling eyes, he seemed utterly devoted. Michael sighed internally. Even though Austin now looked like a fearsome werewolf, his behavior was closer to that of a clumsy, oversized husky. Seeing an opportunity, Michael continued, explaining that since they would be working together, he had made a special exception for him. Hearing this, Austin's mind raced with dreams of one day becoming stronger even than his father. Overwhelmed, Austin suddenly knelt down and hugged Michael tightly, calling him father and begging if he could receive A-rank medicine too. Startled, Michael tried to pry himself free and asked why Austin was calling him father. Tearfully, Austin replied that he would call him Godfather because he had never met anyone who treated him so kindly. Commanding Austin to release him, Michael then took a few steps back and explained firmly, regardless of what Austin called him, A-rank medicine was only given to those who completed enough missions according to the organization's rules. Once Austin nodded in understanding, Michael began explaining the structure of their secret group. Their organization was called Judges, created by a mysterious and powerful leader. Beneath the boss were 12 Zodiac-themed leaders, and Michael, under the identity of Rooster, was one of them. Eagerly, Austin asked just how powerful the boss must be if someone as strong as Michael was only a subordinate. Michael warned him not to speculate. Their boss was secretive and rarely appeared in person. Still buzzing with excitement, Austin asked how he could quickly rise through the ranks. Michael assured him that he had already prepared Austin's first mission. Pointing directly at the transformed werewolf, Michael explained, using his identity as the young master of the Olympus Company, Austin would need to investigate the mysterious blue pill. Austin, puzzled, asked what was so special about this pill. Michael explained that it supposedly could drastically enhance a person's strength, which was why he had come to this city to uncover the forces behind it. Hearing this, Austin's eyes lit up with wonder. A pill that could increase strength sounded like a miracle. However, seeing Austin's excitement, Michael sternly slapped him on the head and warned him not to get any dangerous ideas. He then told him about a real incident. A hero who had used the blue pill had ended up accidentally harming an innocent person. As he finished, Austin's werewolf form receded, and he returned to his human appearance. Rubbing his sore head, he asked who this careless hero was. Michael calmly answered, it was the A-rank hero known as the Ice Adventurer from none other than the Olympus Company. Austin's jaw dropped in shock. He couldn't believe it. The proud, seemingly invincible Ice Adventurer was actually a drug user. Yet that shock soon turned into delight, sensing opportunity. Michael then told him that once he found valuable information, they would meet again. As a reward, Austin would be granted a D-rank ability. Pressing a hand to his heart, Austin swore he would do his best. Satisfied, Michael turned to leave. But after a few steps, he paused, realizing he had forgotten to mention a critical detail. Turning back, he warned Austin the effect of the medicine he had taken would only last for 1 week. He had to complete his mission before the week ran out. Hearing this, Austin's confident expression froze. The ticking clock shook him deeply as Michael disappeared into the distance, leaving the boy alone, the weight of the task pressing heavily on his shoulders. After leaving Austin behind, Michael found an empty alleyway where he changed out of his disguise and into his everyday clothes. Today was his day off, and he decided to take it easy. Grabbing a cold cola from a nearby vendor, he wandered through the busy city streets, enjoying the simple pleasure. As he passed a newspaper stand, something caught his eye, an advertisement posted on the side. Curious, Michael stopped to take a closer look. His eyes widened in shock. The poster announced that Anacott was searching for a young man dressed in a black cloak and wearing a white rooster mask. A phone number was listed below for anyone with information. Michael was so stunned that he choked on his drink, spraying cola onto the newspaper stand's wall. The angry shouts of the seller jolted him back to reality. Quickly apologizing, Michael tore down the wanted poster and hurried away. As he walked, studying the poster, he couldn't believe it. He had never expected that girl to go so far. Suddenly, he stopped. Up ahead, he spotted a group of men roughly dragging a familiar-looking girl into a side alley. Narrowing his eyes, he realized it was Anna. Quietly, Michael followed, staying out of sight. Whatever trouble she had gotten herself into again, it couldn't be good. In the dead end of the alley, Anna pulled away from the men and a stern-looking woman accompanying them. With clear irritation, Anna demanded to know who they were and what they wanted. One of the men, Edward, snapped at her to cut the act and return their young master's blade while they were still asking nicely. Anna blinked innocently and claimed she had no idea what they were talking about. She insisted she didn't even know how to wield a weapon, let alone steal one. But Edward's patience was wearing thin. He accused her of playing their naive young master all along, tricking him and stealing the precious Muramasa blade. Michael's eyes darkened. The Muramasa blade was rumored to be an S-rank legendary weapon. If Anna really had it, she would be in far more danger than she realized, and it would be almost impossible for her to get rid of it. Anna, realizing from Edward's words that the blade she stole was more valuable than she thought, tried to play dumb. She claimed she didn't even know the young master they were talking about and suggested they had the wrong person. Michael almost groaned aloud at how poor her acting was. Any bystander could tell immediately that she was guilty. The stern woman with the group, Vieta, spoke coldly, saying there was no point wasting time. It was time for more decisive measures. Following her cue, Edward drew his sword and advanced on Anna, while Vieta rapidly formed several hand seals, creating a clone of herself with impressive speed. Michael's expression turned serious. He realized immediately that these two were wielders of hereditary abilities above C rank, far stronger than ordinary fighters. Seeing no way to talk her way out, Anna summoned her storage bag and pulled out a B-rank fan. Brandishing it defiantly, she shouted that she wouldn't go down without a fight. With a powerful swing, she unleashed a gust of wind so strong it knocked Edward and the clone off their feet. Laughing triumphantly, Anna leaped into the air, riding the wind. Vieta narrowed her eyes. She wasn't about to let a thief escape so easily. She activated her own ability, and in an instant, her appearance transformed. The Mistress of Snow had awakened. The change was immediate and overwhelming. Dark clouds gathered overhead, and snow began falling in thick, heavy flakes. Michael, recognizing the escalation, frowned. This was getting dangerous. Just in case, he quickly changed back into his rooster costume. Anna, still floating, glanced down and realized with growing horror that the snowflakes weren't natural, they were moving with terrifying speed straight toward her. Concentrating her power, Vieta summoned a full snow typhoon. A swirling storm of sharp, icy flakes tore through the sky toward Anna. Michael felt a rare flicker of fear for the reckless girl. The power Vieta was using wasn't something an ordinary person could withstand. Below, the growing spectacle had caught the attention of passers-by. Many craned their necks to watch the dramatic aerial battle. A reporter on the scene quickly launched a live broadcast, urgently calling out for any nearby heroes to intervene. Meanwhile, Vieta's blizzard caught up to Anna. A powerful blast knocked her from the sky, and she plummeted, hitting the asphalt with a painful crash. Groaning, Anna raised her head slightly, dazed and vulnerable, as the snow continued to fall around her. Lying bruised on the cold asphalt, Anna looked up to see Vieta towering over her, a threatening glint in her eyes. In a cold, commanding voice, Vieta demanded that Anna return the stolen item at once. Gritting her teeth, Anna pushed herself upright. A sly smirk played on her lips as she pulled two small knives from her storage bag. Mockingly, she asked whether they had lost the gold blade or the silver one, promising, with false sweetness, to return whichever they had misplaced. Vieta had no patience left for games. With a flick of her fingers, she froze Anna's feet in solid blocks of ice, rooting her in place. Her tone dropped even lower, warning that if Anna didn't start answering honestly, she might find her frozen legs shattering into tiny pieces. But Anna's defiance didn't waver. With confidence flashing in her eyes, she declared that she would never fall for such cheap tricks. Reaching back into her bag, she pulled out a long blade, claiming she had won it fair and square and wouldn't give it up so easily. Then, in one swift motion, Anna hurled the blade over Vieta's shoulder toward the watching figure behind her. Laughing, Anna shouted that she was gifting the weapon to Michael, completely free of charge. Michael, still disguised as the rooster, casually caught the blade midair. He chuckled and praised Anna's clever thinking. But when he examined the weapon, his smile quickly turned into a scowl. With a sharp bark of irritation, he said that nobody would want such a worn-out, flimsy piece of junk, even if Anna paid them to take it. Anna pouted and protested that was exactly why she had stolen it. She never imagined a worthless blade would cause this much trouble. Realizing that Anna's partner, Michael, had been hiding among the crowd this whole time, Vieta's eyes flared with fury. She ordered her men to attack. In an instant, the air filled with shurikens as numerous clones lunged at Michael from all sides. One of the men, Paul, shouted confidently that no one had ever survived their assault. Michael, however, remained completely still. All the while, he could feel the blade Anna had thrown absorbing his energy. And though this unsettled him, he was curious to see just how valuable this so-called legendary blade really was. Then, something strange happened. Without warning, Michael's body began to move on its own. His hands gripped the blade tighter, and in two clean, instinctive swings, he effortlessly cut through every single clone around him. The original attackers didn't fare any better. They collapsed in stunned disbelief, the shock plain on their faces. Michael himself stood in the middle of the chaos, genuinely confused. He hadn't consciously moved. Something inside the blade was guiding his actions, and he had no idea what was happening.